I grew up in a neighborhood with lots of different types of people, a lot of different nationalities, and I always enjoyed the differences. It was not a bad thing. People didn't take themselves that seriously at that point in time.
Clint Eastwood, the Hollywood icon known for his tough persona and golden gaze, built an empire from acting, directing, and producing, leaving behind an incredible legacy worth hundreds of millions. From his Carmel estate, Pebble Beach properties, and ranches across California, to his lasting film empire, Eastwood's wealth is staggering. With 8 children from different relationships, the division of his vast fortune has brought tears and tension among his family. Stay tuned as we discover his vast legacy that he leaves behind, making his family cry. The making of the legend. Before he became a Hollywood icon, Clint Eastwood was just a quiet kid from San Francisco with dreams far bigger than anyone could imagine. Born in 1930 during the Great Depression, Eastwood grew up in a working-class family that moved frequently as his father searched for stable work. Those early years taught him resilience, independence, and the kind of toughness that would later define his screen persona. In his 20s, Clint's journey to stardom was anything but smooth. He was drafted into the Army and stationed at Fort Ord, California, a coincidence that would later change his life. After his service, he began auditioning for film roles, though Hollywood initially didn't know what to make of his tall, rugged frame and quiet demeanor. He faced constant rejection, told time and again that he didn't fit the look of a leading man. But Clint Eastwood was never one to give up easily. His big break came in the late 1950s when he landed a role in the television series Rawhide. The show became a major hit, and Eastwood's character, Rowdy Yates, made him a household name. Yet even as audiences loved him, Clint wasn't satisfied. He wanted more than just fame. He wanted control over his art. He studied directing, learned how sets worked, and saved his earnings for future projects. He was preparing for something bigger. That something arrived when Italian director Sergio Leone cast him in A Fistful of Dollars, 1964, the first of the famous spaghetti westerns. With few words, a steely gaze, and unmatched presence, Eastwood became the face of a new kind of Western hero, cold, mysterious, and undeniably powerful. The film's global success launched him into superstardom and set the stage for a career that would span more than 6 decades. By the 1970s, Eastwood had evolved into one of Hollywood's most bankable stars. His role as Dirty Harry Callahan, the fearless San Francisco cop who wasn't afraid to break the rules, became legendary. The line, "Do you feel lucky, punk?" would echo through movie history. Yet Clint was never content to stay within one mold.
You have to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
He moved behind the camera, directing and producing films through his own company, Malpaso Productions, ensuring he could tell stories exactly the way he wanted. His directorial work brought a new dimension to his reputation. Films like Unforgiven, $1 Million Baby, and Gran Torino earned critical acclaim and multiple Academy Awards. These projects showed a softer, more reflective side of Eastwood, an artist who understood both strength and vulnerability. From his humble beginnings to global fame, Clint Eastwood's story is one of perseverance, grit, and vision. He wasn't handed success. He built it piece by piece, project by project. And as the years went on, his empire grew beyond Hollywood screens into real estate, business ventures, and investments that would one day become part of the fortune that makes his family cry. The massive fortune. Clint Eastwood's career wasn't just about fame and awards. It was about building a powerful financial legacy that would rival some of Hollywood's biggest empires. Over the span of more than 6 decades, Eastwood turned his success in film into a carefully crafted fortune that would ultimately be valued at over $400 million. From the very beginning, Eastwood treated his career like a business. When most actors were satisfied with their paychecks, Clint was already thinking ahead. During his time on the TV show Rawhide, he began setting aside a portion of his income to fund future projects. He understood that fame could fade, but ownership, real control, could last forever. That mindset laid the foundation for the empire he would one day command. His first major leap into wealth came through his partnership with director Sergio Leone in the 1960s. The spaghetti westerns, A Fistful of Dollars for a Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly not only turned him into an international star, but also earned him profit shares that paid off for decades. By the time Dirty Harry hit theaters in 1971, Eastwood had transformed into both a Hollywood icon and a savvy businessman who knew how to negotiate big deals. However, Eastwood's real genius lay in how he reinvested his earnings. In 1967, he founded Malpaso Productions, a company that gave him full creative and financial control over his films. Rather than relying on studios, Clint began producing and directing his own movies. This not only increased his artistic freedom, but also multiplied his profits. Every successful movie he made added millions to his net worth, from Unforgiven to Gran Torino and American Sniper. Unlike many stars who lived lavishly, Eastwood lived modestly, preferring quiet luxury and meaningful investments. He bought properties in Carmel by the Sea, Pebble Beach, Los Angeles, Maui, and Idaho, choosing each location carefully for its long-term value. His passion project, Mission Ranch, became a landmark in Carmel, a property he purchased and restored to preserve its historic beauty. He later developed the exclusive Tehama Golf Club, a private community that would attract high-profile residents and become one of his most valuable real estate ventures.
Clint Eastwood just hit the market. The Carmel by the Sea property is listed at $21 million.
Clint's wealth wasn't only tied to film and property. He also invested in music, hospitality, and smaller business ventures over the years. Friends and associates often described him as a man who thought like a cowboy, but planned like a banker. He understood the balance between risk and reward, and it paid off handsomely. By the 2000s, his empire had grown beyond expectations. He had achieved what few actors ever could: complete independence. Studios sought him, audiences revered him, and investors respected him. Even in his later years, Clint continued to work, directing films well into his 90s, proving that passion and profit could go hand in hand. To him, success wasn't about excess, it was about freedom. And yet, that freedom, built on decades of hard work, would one day become the source of deep emotion and unexpected conflict within his family. As the fortune grew, so did the questions. Who would inherit it? How would it be divided among his 8 children? And could this incredible legacy, built with such care, also be the thing that makes his family cry? The properties that built his empire. When people think of Clint Eastwood, they often picture the steely-eyed cowboy, the no-nonsense cop, or the masterful director behind the camera. But behind that tough, calm exterior was also a man with an extraordinary eye for land, architecture, and timeless beauty. Over the years, Eastwood quietly built one of Hollywood's most impressive real estate portfolios, a collection of properties that reflected both his wealth and his character. Eastwood's real estate journey began in Carmel by the Sea, a charming coastal town in California. Long before he became its mayor in 1986, he fell in love with the area's tranquility, ocean views, and tight-knit community. One of his earliest and most beloved purchases was the Mission Ranch, a 22-acre property that would later become a symbol of his vision and passion for preservation. When Clint bought Mission Ranch, it was in danger of being demolished by developers. Instead of letting that happen, he restored it to its former glory, transforming the land into a rustic yet elegant inn and restaurant surrounded by green pastures and mountain views. It wasn't just an investment, it was a love letter to the land he adored. Locals often recalled seeing him walk the grounds, greeting guests with humility, proud of what he'd built not as a star, but as a caretaker of history.
Clint Eastwood first moseyed into the Mission Ranch when he was a raw recruit at nearby Fort Ord looking for a place to kick back.
Not far from Mission Ranch lies Eastwood's Tehama Golf Club, another of his grand creations. This private, members-only community became one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in Carmel Valley. With its world-class golf course, luxury homes, and breathtaking scenery, Tehama was more than just a business project. It was Clint's dream of blending nature with refined living. Every inch of the property reflected his appreciation for simplicity, beauty, and balance. Beyond Carmel, Eastwood's holdings stretched across Pebble Beach, Los Angeles, Maui, and even Sun Valley, Idaho. His Pebble Beach estates alone were worth tens of millions, offering spectacular oceanfront views. In Hawaii, he owned a quiet retreat where he could escape Hollywood's noise. And in Idaho, he found peace in the mountains, surrounded by the kind of rugged wilderness that had always called to him. Each of his properties shared one common thread. They were never about show or excess. Clint Eastwood didn't build mansions filled with gold or marble. He built homes that felt lived in, connected to nature, and true to his understated personality. He once said, "You should build a place where you can hear yourself think." And that's exactly what he did. Real estate became more than a financial investment for Eastwood. It was a reflection of who he was, a man who valued legacy over luxury, preservation over profit. His eye for land turned into a fortune, but it also became a deeply personal part of his story. They became treasures of memory, filled with meaning for his 8 children, each one holding a piece of their father's world. And as time passed, the question of who would inherit what began to stir emotions. The family behind the legend. Behind the legendary name Clint Eastwood stood a family as complex and fascinating as the man himself. Over the decades, Clint became the father of 8 children from different relationships, each one a unique reflection of his charisma, talent, and sometimes unpredictable personal life. Though he often kept his private world away from the spotlight, his family would ultimately become one of the most emotional chapters of his legacy. Clint's first known child, Kimber Eastwood, was born from his relationship with actress Roxanne Tunis during the early years of his rise to fame. For a long time, Clint kept this relationship private, but as Kimber grew up, she came to know her father as both a Hollywood icon and a surprisingly down-to-earth man. Then came his first marriage to Maggie Johnson, which lasted nearly 30 years. Together, they had 2 children, Kyle and Allison Eastwood. Kyle would later become a talented jazz musician, while Allison followed in her father's footsteps as an actress and director. Despite Clint's demanding career, he remained close to them, often sharing his love of music, film, and the quiet outdoors. As Clint's fame grew, so did the complexity of his personal life. He fathered more children from other relationships, including Scott and Catherine Eastwood with Jocelyn Reeves, a former flight attendant. Scott, now a Hollywood actor himself, bears an uncanny resemblance to his father and often speaks proudly of Clint's discipline and humility. Catherine pursued her own creative path, staying more private but close to the family circle. From his relationship with actress Frances Fisher, Clint welcomed Francesca Eastwood, another child drawn to the world of acting. His youngest daughter, Morgan Eastwood, was born from his later marriage to television journalist Dina Ruiz. Though Clint and Dina eventually divorced, their relationship was one of quiet companionship, with both sharing a love for privacy and family life.
The legendary actor Clint Eastwood on the red carpet. With him are all his children.
8 children, each from different moments of his long and colorful life, meant that family gatherings were as unpredictable as his film plots. Yet, for all the complications, those who knew Clint best said he was a devoted father in his own way, one who preferred quality time to grand gestures. He often took his kids horseback riding, hiking, or fishing, teaching them the same simple lessons that guided his own life: hard work, honesty, and independence. Still, Clint's children grew up knowing the pressures of being part of a powerful legacy. Some lived in the limelight, others stayed quietly in the background. And while there were moments of tension, as can happen in any blended family, there was also deep respect for the man who held them together. As Clint grew older, his focus shifted from building his empire to preserving his relationships. The man who once seemed larger than life softened with age, spending more time with his family, enjoying dinners at his Carmel ranch, and reflecting on the years gone by. Yet, behind those peaceful moments lay the inevitable question that would one day bring tears. How would Clint Eastwood's vast fortune and legacy be shared among the 8 lives he helped shape? That question, and the emotions tied to it, would soon test the strength of the family behind the legend. The fortune that brings tears. When news broke about Clint Eastwood's immense fortune, the world focused on the numbers, the estimated $400 million empire.
Clint Eastwood has more than enough money to enjoy a lot of luxury and comfort.
The land, the films, the businesses. But behind those figures was a story far more emotional. The impact his wealth had on the people closest to him, his 8 children, and the extended family who loved and sometimes misunderstood him. What Clint left behind was more than money. It was a lifetime of memories, lessons, and unspoken expectations that brought both tears and tension to those he left behind. Throughout his life, Eastwood was known for being private and disciplined about his finances. He never lived like a man obsessed with riches. He wore simple clothes, drove modest cars, and ate in small local restaurants. His idea of wealth wasn't luxury, it was freedom. Freedom to create, to own his work, and to live life on his own terms. Yet, when the time came to distribute what he had built, that same independence made things complicated. For years, Clint quietly managed his estate, ensuring that his properties, production company, and assets were organized. He was careful but private, and rarely discussed his plans with the public. His loved ones knew he had made arrangements, but not all of them knew the details. This secrecy, while typical of Clint, also left his children uncertain, and as rumors about inheritance began to circulate, so did emotions. Some reports suggested that his wealth would be divided equally among his 8 children, reflecting his sense of fairness. Others speculated that certain family members, especially those more involved in his personal or professional life, might receive a larger share. Whether true or not, these discussions reopened old wounds, reminding the family that Clint's life had been filled with both love and distance. Those closest to him described mixed feelings, tears of pride, sorrow, and confusion. Pride for the man who had achieved so much from such humble beginnings. Sorrow for the realization that his presence, once the glue that held everyone together, was now gone. And confusion about what came next. For some of his children, the inheritance wasn't about money at all. It was about legacy, recognition, and connection to a father who, in his quiet way, had shaped each of their lives. Despite differences among them, one truth united the Eastwood family. They were all part of a remarkable legacy. Each child carried pieces of Clint's strength, creativity, and independence. And even as lawyers and advisors sorted through the practicalities of his estate, the family's focus remained on honoring his memory rather than fighting over his wealth. In the end, Clint Eastwood's fortune wasn't just counted in dollars or properties, it was measured in the impact he left, the lessons of hard work, resilience, and authenticity. His passing left a void that no amount of money could fill. And as his children reflected on the man behind the legend, they wept not for what they might gain, but for what they had lost: a father, a teacher, and a living symbol of the American dream. The legacy lives on. As the sun set on Clint Eastwood's long and extraordinary life, his story became more than just that of a Hollywood legend.
Clint Eastwood Jr. is a successful American filmmaker and actor.
It became a lesson in endurance, artistry, and integrity. Though he left behind a staggering fortune, what truly endured was the legacy he built through his work, his values, and the lives he touched. For his family, friends, and fans, Clint's presence could still be felt, In every film, every quiet moment, and every stretch of land he once called home, Clint Eastwood's legacy was never defined by money or fame. It was defined by discipline and authenticity. On set, he was known for his calm authority. He rarely yelled, never wasted time, and often finished films ahead of schedule and under budget. He valued precision and respect, traits that earned him the admiration of everyone who worked with him. Younger actors often described him as a mentor, someone who taught by example rather than lecture. His motto, "Don't overthink it, just do it," became a guiding principle for generations of filmmakers. Through Malpaso Productions, Clint ensured that his creative freedom would last long after his final scene. The company not only produced his own films, but also served as a foundation for his children's artistic pursuits. His son, Scott Eastwood, carried the torch as an actor, often channeling his father's quiet strength and moral intensity on screen. Others, like Kyle, continued to thrive in music, a passion Clint deeply cherished. Even those who stayed out of the spotlight carried pieces of his philosophy into their own lives: humility, hard work, and staying true to oneself. For his family, the final chapters of Clint Eastwood's story were filled with reflection rather than regret. Despite differences and distance, his children found unity in his memory. They saw in him not just the stern cowboy or the determined director, but the man who built a life defined by purpose. In the end, Clint Eastwood's greatest legacy was not his films, his fame, or even his fortune. It was his example. He lived life on his own terms, stood by his beliefs, and never stopped creating. And though he has ridden into the sunset, his spirit remains immortal, unshaken, and forever a part of the American dream he helped define. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.